Welcome to AK Anime Explainer. Today is explanation of Soul Land 3, Legend of the Dragon King Part 182. Without any delay, start explanation. Contestant Tang Wulin's martial soul has become stronger with the unleashing of his fourth soul skill. What a thick vine. It looks to be a rank more powerful than before. Contestant Dai Yu Yang couldn't charge out of that light ring. The vines also rose within the light ring, and they looked stronger too. Circles of blue rings rose from under his feet. Blue-silver-golden array was Tang Wulin's third soul skill. In truth, this soul skill's greatest strength was elemental stripping. It had a powerful restraining effect on every elemental attribute. It also has the ability to bind the opponent. If it were under normal circumstances, the blue-silver-golden array could not constrain Dai Yu Yang. After all, its constraining ability was dependent on the blue-silver grass's bind and puncturing ability. However, under the improvement brought about by the blue-silver overlord transformation, the powers of the blue-silver-golden array were more formidable than before. Dai Yu Yan's body was bound in no time and he was forcibly pulled onto the ground. Dai Yu Yang kept his cool although he was shocked. At the critical moment, the fourth soul ring on Dai Yu Yan's body shone brightly. His body suddenly curled up. Then, beams of black and white light burst forth from his body. The beams of light flickered in the air. They brought with them incomparable destructive power. Under the improvements brought by the three superb support soul skills, the force of this fourth soul skill, White Tiger Demon Slaying Kill, was raised to the hilt. He finally managed to cut through those thick blue-silver emperors. However, it was also at this very moment when blades of blue-silver grass punctured him from the ground. Blue-silver Impaling Array, second soul skill. Since his controlling skills had taken effect, he followed up with a series of control skills. Currently, Tang Wulin had already leaped into the air. Under the enhancement of his battle armor, he slashed at Dai Yu Yang with his pair of golden dragon claws. The blue-silver Impaling Array would not be able to restrain Dai Yu Yang for long. However, an instant was all he needed, an instant was sufficient. Then, out of the blue, Dai Yu Yan's body shattered and exploded into a puff of black and white smoke. The blue-silver Impaling Array had punctured a little tiger which had an illusory body. The moment it was punctured, it instantly became transparent. Meanwhile, Dai Yu Yang himself had appeared more than 10 meters away. He took a few light steps and charged out of the range of the blue-silver-golden array. A faint smile appeared on his face. Since you've unleashed your ability, I'll do my best to respond. Beams of light shot out from his body, which curled upward. A clean, white armor with black patterns fell on his body. Not a moment later, it merged with his body. From the looks of the colors, his battle armor was similar to Xie Xie's, but they were thicker and heavier. The pauldrons on his shoulders were in the shape of two tiger heads. The battle armor covered his entire body including his face. One word: battle armor. Tiger. Tiger was the name Dai Yu Yang gave to his battle armor. In fact, all the previous one-word battle armor masters who possessed the White Tiger martial soul gave their battle armors the same name. With the battle armor on his body, the aura on Dai Yu Yang increased rapidly. Under the influence of the White Tiger Demon God transformation, pieces of white metal merged upward from the base of his 6-foot-long tiger claws. The metals clamped themselves around the base of each claw. The tiger claws emitted a layer of dark golden glow. His body turned transparent as if it was made of crystal. Tang Wulin, who had leaped into the air, was still targeting Dai Yu Yang. It was as if he had not seen Dai Yu Yan's transformation. His pair of golden dragon claws slashed downward. Dai Yu Yan's expression changed. He yelled loudly, "You dare!" The front of Tang Wulin's golden dragon claws shone brightly with golden light. He grabbed the black and white bicolored little tiger and closed his claws forcefully to squash it. The little tiger turned into spots of light as it dispersed in the air. Dai Yu Yang grunted. The aura on his body changed immediately. When two armies are facing each other in all readiness, what is it that I dare not do? Tang Wulin dropped within the blue-silver-golden array. He looked at his opponent with keen sparkling eyes. All this would have been dealt with if you had utilized your battle armor sooner. Dai Yuyang drew a deep breath and tried to keep his calm. He knew that once he got angry, he would fall into the trap of this sly young fellow. He remembered very well how Dai Yuna had lost. His body flashed. Dai Yuyang sprinted ferociously toward the blue-silver golden array. With the protection of his battle armor, these vines could be easily deposed in his eyes. Tang Wulin just stood within the blue-silver golden array. Blades of blue-silver emperors which had undergone blue-silver overlord transformation poked out of the ground continuously as they tried to impede Dai Yuyan's advancing footsteps. Under the enhancement of his battle armor, the power of Dai Yuyan's pair of sharp claws was tremendously powerful. The blue-silver emperors were all shattered as he pressed on ardently. Even the blue-silver golden array could not stop him a fraction of an inch. The present Dai Yuyang was at the peak of his prime. Making his way forward was a piece of cake as he was almost upon Tang Wulin. "I'm afraid that this match is coming to an end." There was a hint of relief in Fanger's commentary. Tang Wulin had been defending quite well from the previous collision. He managed to hold off Dai Yuyang for a while and finally made him use his battle armor. This alone was enough for him to take pride in. However, there was no question about the outcome of the match. With his battle armor, Dai Yuyan's strength, agility, and attacking powers overwhelmed Tang Wulin. Even Tang Wulin's blue-silver emperor could not stop his advance. There was a marked difference in their ranks. The two opponents moved closer to each other. Dai Yuyan's right tiger claw swept out in the air. 5 streaks of dazzling light blades shot straight toward Tang Wulin's chest. Surprisingly, Tang Wulin did not dodge, nor did he attempt to block it. The scales on his body turned glaringly bright. Ding! Amidst the sharp sound, the golden dragon scales flashed energetically with light. Tang Wulin's own aura suddenly increased. Simultaneously, among the blue-silver emperor vines, a golden vine shot toward the sky and wrapped itself around Dai Yuyang. Dai Yuyang waved his tiger claws instinctively and wanted to slice it open. Strangely, when the tiger claw hit the vine, despite a golden light being given off, it did not sever the vine. Instead, a surge of retaliatory force came and Dai Yuyan's forward-charging momentum was forcibly stopped. Shortly after, the giant dragon head which had appeared before reappeared. It gave off another deafening growl. The bloodline suppression was not as effective as it usually was in the face of a battle armor. Although Dai Yuyang still felt his blood essence boil, at least, he recovered in half the normal time. Currently, the spectator stands of Star Luo Coliseum was in an uproar. They saw with fright when the golden vine wrapped itself around Dai Yuyang while the giant dragon head roared furiously at Dai Yuyang. Tang Wulin stretched his arms outward. A moment later, 2 big objects, which made everyone's eyes pop out, appeared in Tang Wulin's grasp. In spite of his battle armor, golden dragon claws, and Tang Wulin's godly strength, when these 2 big objects appeared in his hands, his body sank slightly. My heavens! What are those? What were those? Those were a pair of giant hammers. They were the terrifying giant weapons of a black mecha. A dazzling golden light burst forth from the giant hammers. The resounding dragon's roar caused lines of dragon patterns to spread out on the giant hammers. That was the energy from golden dragon shocks the heavens. Tang Wulin brazenly swung the left hammer. He drew an arc from the lower left direction and shot straight toward Dai Yuyang. Although Dai Yuyang had blocked the dragon's roar with his battle armor, his spirit was flustered for a moment. In addition to that, he was struggling with Goldsong's bind. Thus, he lost focus momentarily. When that giant hammer came flying toward him, Goldsong retracted without warning. The struggling Dai Yuyang lost control of his body and fell head-on toward the incoming giant hammer. How big was the giant hammer? Each hammer was as long as 5 meters, and the diameters of their hammerheads were 2 meters. They were not hollow but rock solid. Why was Tang Wulin reluctant to sell them? This pair of giant hammers were made from rare metals, and they were solid to boot. The enormous weight and the number of rare metals used were definitely the largest among all the mecha weapons he had ever seen. Moreover, he was born with godly strength, and he liked heavy weapons the most. Even when he sold the mecha, he was unwilling to sell this pair of giant hammers. When he faced different opponents, he had corresponding countermeasure tactics ready. Once he knew Dai Yuyan's martial soul was the white tiger, he had thought of the counter-tactic to apply. With Dai Yuyan's cultivation base, the possibility of not having him don his battle armor was low. Then, what made Tang Wulin confident that he could defeat him after Dai Yuyan had donned his battle armor? Since he erupted with power just now, Tang Wulin had actually begun setting the trap for Dai Yuyan. He had only one objective, and that was to make Dai Yuyan think that he was already doing his best or at his wit's end. When one had the upper hand, one would have a higher tendency to slip even for just a little bit. As for Dai Yuyan, with his absolute strength and the support of his battle armor, he had no reason to think why he could not defeat Tang Wulin. Under such circumstances, he would be careless, more so when Tang Wulin had shattered his spirit soul, which needed some time to recover. It was a blow to Dai Yuyan. No matter how hard he tried to suppress his anger, he remained angry. Under the influence of various factors, and with the activation of Tang Wulin's Golden Dragon super armor, Dai Yuyan fell right into his trap. Boom! The force of the giant hammers was truly incredible. These giant hammers were more than 2,500 kilograms each. Added to Tang Wulin's extraordinary strength, and complemented by Golden Dragon shocks the heavens, the combined energy of their forces would inflict untold damage on their target. Back then, even the Black Mecha itself had difficulties handling the attacks of these giant hammers. Before Soul Masters reached the rank of titled Olor, they were still considered as humans. By the time Dai Yuyan noticed the giant hammer, it was a gigantic ball which was going to crush him. He instinctively raised his tiger claws to block the hammer. Tang Wulin had preyed upon the unsuspecting Dai Yuyan, who had been weakened in a series of attacks. Even after Dai Yuyan had undergone a succession of enhancements and his tiger claws had been enhanced by his battle armor, how could he have hoped to fend off this super heavy weapon? Dai Yuyan became a cannonball. He was blown away by the force of Tang Wulin's attack in the air. Tang Wulin stomped on the ground with his feet, another dragon's roar sounded. Little golden dragons rose from the ground. Like springs, they pushed on Tang Wulin's body. Golden Dragon shakes the earth was no longer used for attacks. Instead, they were used to push Tang Wulin, who had the pair of giant hammers with him. His body rose into the air immediately. The pair of giant hammers brought with them a terrifying strength and a foul wind, like meteors chasing after the moon. They crashed straight toward Dai Yuyan's body. Tang Wulin did not show any mercy. If he allowed Dai Yuyan time to regain his bearings, he would not stand a chance against him with his battle armor. The shock from the first hit made Dai Yuyan feel like his innards were on fire. Even if his one-word battle armor had negated most of the impact, the force of the giant hammers was devastating. It was so powerful that when his blood essence surged and roiled, his spirit fell into a daze. At this instant, Tang Wulin had caught up with Dai Yuyan. A pair of giant hammers fell from the skies and smashed Dai Yuyan's body in succession. When the audience on the stand saw the pair of giant hammers which were larger than Tang Wulin about to hit Dai Yuyan, they could not help cringing. It was really horrible. This was truly terrible. Boom! Dai Yuyan fell from the skies. Dropping like a cannonball, he crashed onto the center of the competition stage. When the pair of giant hammers were swung at full force, the impact was more than 5,000 kilograms. Tang Wulin raised the giant hammers and descended from the skies. He landed near where Dai Yuyan had crashed onto the ground. The sonorous dragon's roar resounded throughout the Colosseum again. He showed no signs of giving up. With the momentum from his descent, he aimed the hammers toward the huge crater. Exclamations of shock resounded throughout the spectators' stands. This guy was truly after the fourth prince's life. On the platform, Dai Qianling was gripping the table with his hands without noticing it. Enci, who sat beside him, had a sudden change of expression as he said softly, "This is bad." When he said those words, a figure charged onto the competition stage. The figure intercepted and blocked Tang Wulin's pair of hammers. The figure raised his hands and surprisingly dispersed the tremendous force and pushed Tang Wulin, together with his hammers, away. Tang Wulin, with the hammers in his hands, turned for a few revolutions before he dropped to the ground. He staggered for a few steps before he managed to steady himself. However, on his face, there was the trace of a smile. The one who had pushed him aside was an elder. He turned out to be the referee for this match. Currently, there were 8 soul rings flashing on the referee's body. When he went to have a look at the crater, Dai Yuyang was already on his feet, albeit appearing a bit wobbly. Dai Yuyang looked beaten up. His head and face were covered in ashes, and a major part of his body was exposed. From his pauldrons to his breastplate, his battle armor was reduced. Even his white tiger demon god transformation and diamond transformation were completely shattered by the intense impact of the attack. Who asked you to butt in? Dai Yuyang was furious at the referee. The referee was stunned for a moment. If it had been any other match, he would not have meddled in it before the outcome of the match had been decided. However, in the present situation, had he allowed Tang Wulin's hammers to hit true, there was a huge possibility that His Highness the Fourth Prince would be in a life-and-death situation. From a referee's perspective, he had done nothing wrong. He must ensure the safety of the contestants. When Dai Yuyang was sent crashing onto the center of the competition stage, he had utilized the power from his battle armor and had somehow managed to disperse most of the impact. Then, he amassed all his strength and prepared for another opportunity to strike. The assault of Tang Wulin's hammers was almost impossible to block, but Dai Yuyang had the confidence that he could end the match with Tang Wulin suffering great losses. Nonetheless, when the referee interfered and stopped Tang Wulin, the outcome of this competition was set. He could no longer reverse the outcome. In truth, when Tang Wulin had sent him plunging from the sky, he noticed a problem. Dai Yuyan's battle armor was very powerful. It was not made with just any rare metal. Its defenses were not completely broken even after such a heavy blow. So, Tang Wulin seized the opportunity to follow up with another attack. The emergence of the referee was within Tang Wulin's expectations. This turned out to be the ideal scenario for him. His victory had just been confirmed. The referee was slightly stunned by Dai Yuyan's challenge. After Dai Yuyang made the utterance, he noticed his labored breathing. The blood essence within him boiled. He was so shaken as to be bleeding from his 7 orifices. His spirit was flustered too. He could not believe that he made such a mistake. Whatever it was, this guy was full of deceit. Tang Wulin had retracted his pair of giant hammers. He looked at Dai Yuyang with a smile. Your Highness the Fourth Prince, you've let him win. Dai Yuyang grunted angrily. He turned and left. A loss was a loss. Under the watch of so many witnesses, he had no way of denying it. No matter how he consoled himself, he could not say that he did not lose this match. On the platform, Dai Qianling's brows were tightly knit together. Enci sighed softly. His status has been a great help to him, but there are also times when it's a shackle. In the final moments, he still had the opportunity to turn his loss into a victory. Although the price he paid was high, at least, he still had a chance. Dai Qianling said in a low voice, he lost on his own accord. He cannot blame anyone. The referee did no wrong. Enci smiled. It's not really a bad thing for the Fourth Prince to lose this match. Many a time, only when a person has failed can the person truly mature. Dai Qianling was slightly stunned. Then, the edges of his lips curled into a faint smile. Star Luo Colosseum was in a state of confusion. Curses and profanities were hurled, and the jeers and howls could be heard throughout the Colosseum. They were aimed at Tang Wulin mostly. Some said that he was mean and had no sense of shame. There were also insults on his choice of weapons. In reality, those who still had a rational mind knew well that Tang Wulin had not broken any rules of the competition. The rules of the competition did not forbid anyone from using heavy weapons. If mechas were allowed, why would heavy weapons not be? Tang Wulin flexed his shoulders and got off the competition stage with a smile. He turned a deaf ear toward the curses from the audience. After all, his opponent for today's match was the prince. He should not taunt the audience any further. It was not easy. He had finally won and he was entering the quarterfinals. In the next match, his opponent would be Yuan and Yehue. Between the two, one of them was bound to enter the semi-finals. There were two others from Monster Academy who managed to qualify for the quarter-finals. They were Long Yu and the Wind King Lin San. Unlike Tang Wulin and Yuan and Yehui, they would not be facing each other in the next round. However, they would still face each other in the semi-finals. In short, if everything went well, Tang Wulin or Yuan and Yehui would be facing the victor between Long Yu and Lin San in the finals. Obviously, the winner of the finals would be the champion of the solo competition for this year's grand competition. Shrek Academy should already take pride in the achievements of its students who have come this far in the competition. Although Tang Wulin still had some strategies up his sleeves for his previous matches, his strategies were dwindling. Fortunately, he had finished his match. He had just completed his most critical of showdowns. When he returned to the waiting area, he noticed that Dai Yuyang had already left. The defeat was a great blow to the Tiger King. Long Yu was still there, Lin San was there as well. Their gazes fell on Tang Wulin. Long Yu suddenly approached Tang Wulin. Tang Wulin stood where he was and waited for Long Yu to come over. Your performance has exceeded my expectations. But, I hope that you have not displayed your ultimate strength yet. After he said this, Long Yu laughed, turned around and left. Lin San also looked at Tang Wulin with some interest. Too bad, I won't be facing you in the solo competition. In the team competitions, I hope that I get to experience some of your skillful tactics. Your comrade there isn't too bad either. The person he was referring to was Xie Xie. Currently, Xie Xie was still sound asleep. The noises of the world outside did not bother him. Tang Wulin stooped down to carry Xie Xie, but he was blocked by Yuanan. Let me do it. Huh? Tang Wulin was dumbfounded. Then, he saw Yuan and Yehui using a princess hug to carry Xie Xie in her arms. She was careful not to wake Xie Xie up. Then, she walked outside in big strides. A smile appeared at the edge of Tang Wulin's lips. It revealed a hint of envy. The dust had finally settled in the solo competitions where 8 contestants would be eliminated from the top 16. The top 8 would be decided then. There was one contestant who could not take part in the next round due to his injuries which were too severe. His opponent would have been Long Yu. That meant that Long Yu would not be facing a fight in the next round, and he would proceed directly to the semi-finals. However, nobody thought that Long Yu had any advantage to gain. The reason why the previous 2 contestants had fought fervently was that they obviously knew their opponent in the next match would be Long Yu. There was no possibility of them defeating him. They might as well have an all-out battle to gain some fame in the quarter-finals. There were 2 people each from Monster Academy and Shrek Academy who got into the quarter-finals. It would be a situation where they were still pitted against each other. The various news and printed media covered the heavens and earth. There were even titles that read, as long as Shrek Academy enters the finals, they would have already won. Of course, much more of the titles were along the lines of, go back to where you came from, Shrek. However, there was no doubt that the strengths of the contestants from Shrek were being recognized. Deputy President Tang Bingyao congratulated Elder Cai, and declared that the Federation would be rewarding Tang Wulin and those who have shown outstanding performances during this grand competition. Naturally, this would have to wait until they returned to Dolor continent. Only after he entered his hotel room did Tang Wulin rub his ears. He could not stand it anymore. It had finally quietened down. Then, he removed a small cotton ball from each of his ears. The soundproofing abilities of the cotton balls were not bad. However, they could barely keep out the racket in Star Luo Coliseum. The victor of the match between him and Yuanan would be facing Long Yu. It would most likely be Long Yu. Wulin, you've won. At this moment, a voice came from behind the door. Tang Wulin opened the door. What he saw was a tired-looking Yi Xinglan standing outside his door. Xinglan, why are you looking so dreadful? Tang Wulin quickly asked her to come in. The person who came in with her was shockingly Xu Lishi. Neither was Xu Lishi looking good. However, unlike Yi Xinglan, his appearance was attributed to his bad mood. Sister Xinglan is working too hard. She hadn't been sleeping these past few days. All she did was meditate and craft battle armors, said Xu Lixi in a worrisome tone. Tang Wulin said, Xinglan, this isn't good for you. Yi Xinglan smiled dryly, there's nothing bad about it. I've already given up on this competition. Don't tell me that I can't even do this. Although I may be tired, I have improved in crafting battle armors. Enough talk about this. Please come by my place later. I have some newly crafted parts. Tang Wulin looked at Xu Lixi. Although Xu Lixi was worried, he still nodded. They knew how stubborn Yi Xinglan could be. When this lady was serious about something, she can be most adamant about it. Tang Wulin sighed softly. He could see why Yi Xinglan was not looking good as she had used bloodthirst bean buns. That explained her appearance. Yi Xinglan smiled. I watched the recording of your match just now, and you were quite good. Honestly speaking, if I were faced with your giant hammers, I wouldn't know how I could fight them. It's good that you've unleashed what you're good at during the most critical moments. Tang Wulin smiled wryly. That's something that couldn't be helped. We don't have a complete one-word battle armor. The only thing that we can do when we're faced with a powerful opponent is to restrict them. That being said, I'm getting more convinced that the choice I made previously was wise. Only when our battle armor and ourselves are merged into one can we unleash our full potential. There's still some difference to the ones that we don on our bodies. I was right to select the Spirit Alloy one-word battle armor. Yi Xinglan nodded. Even if we can't upgrade the battle armor into a two-word battle armor yet, the enhancing effects of a Spirit Alloy one-word battle armor would be different from the ones crafted through the ordinary process. The unleashing of it will also be different. We'll just have to put in more effort. In no time, we'll also have our own complete battle armor. Yi Xinglan and Xu Lixi left. Tang Wulin pressed his lips together. He could see the meaning in the depths of Yi Xinglan's eye. He must not lose. He must always pursue victory, they all must. Regardless of who the opponent was, they must do their level best. The following matches were what most people had predicted. From the quarterfinals to the semi-finals. Yuan and Yehui had given up on the match voluntarily, which guaranteed Tang Wulin a spot in the semi-finals. Tang Wulin was unaware of Yuan's decision. It was on the competition stage when Yuan and Yehui, out of the blue, announced that she yielded. Tang Wulin asked her why she made that decision. Her stance was clear. If they had fought, regardless of who won the match, the combat strength of the other person would have been weakened, and it would not be beneficial for the upcoming matches. Moreover, they still had the 2-against-2 and team competitions. Yuan wanted to reserve her combat strength for those matches. Long Yu and Lin San had also made it to the semi-finals. In the semi-finals, Lin San did not give up the match like Yuan and Yehui did. Instead, he chose to challenge Long Yu. There was no doubt about the outcome. He had displayed a greater combat strength from when he fought Xie Xie, and with the enhancement of his one-word battle armor, he managed to give Long Yu a run for his money, but he still lost in the end. From the beginning to the end of the match, Long Yu did not use his battle armor. Tang Wulin witnessed the match with his own eyes. After he saw the match, his expression turned gloomy. Long Yu was really powerful. He was so powerful that he could not think of any combat strategy that could be effective when he faced him in battle. An opponent like this struck fear into one's heart. In the semi-finals, the strength of Tang Wulin's opponent was also very strong. However, he had fought frantically in his previous match, which resulted in his battle armor being seriously damaged. Tang Wulin exploited a weak spot and ended the battle in 10 minutes. The contenders for the finals were decided. Shrek Academy's Tang Wulin versus Monster Academy's Long Yu. The match was termed as the Battle of the Two Dragons by the officials. After a day's rest, the match would be held on the morning of the second day. The match would be the greatest showdown of this year's grand competition. In many gambling establishments, the wagers were in favor of Long Yu winning, where the odds were 10-1 for Tang Wulin, whereas it was only 1-2 for Long Yu. Obviously, nobody thought the odds were in Tang Wulin's favor. In everyone's eyes, with Long Yu's power, there was no way that he could lose this match. He had 6 rings. Besides being a 6-ringed Soul Emperor, he even possessed the bloodline of the Mountain Dragon King of the 8 Great Dragon Kings. The precise time this battle between two dragons would end had become a hot topic among numerous gambling companies. As for the outcome of the match, it seemed that it was already decided the moment they entered the finals. Even so, very few citizens of the Star Luo Empire felt that this was something that they could take pride in. Tang Wulin had reached the finals at only 15 years old. In the history of the Continental Young High-Ranking Soul Masters Elite competition, this was unprecedented. As he sat cross-legged on the bed, Tang Wulin's spirits were completely focused on the internal condition of his own body. His blood essence surged. The faint golden bloodline aura and the milky white mysterious heaven method soul power merged into one and flowed calmly like the great Yangtze River. They flowed completely throughout his entire form. At long last, he had reached the finals. Tomorrow would be the deciding match. It would also be his turn to face Long Yu. This battle was both the final bout and their final confrontation. He had already rid himself of all unnecessary thoughts. No matter what happened, he would fight with all his might. Ever since he finished the second evolution of his martial soul, where the blue-silver grass turned into the blue-silver emperor, his cultivation base could be said to have advanced at a tremendous pace. It was much faster than what his rate of improvement had been before. His soul power had just broken through rank 42 yesterday. After rank 40, the growth rate of a soul master's soul power would noticeably slow down. Before this, he would never have dreamed of being able to climb ranks this quickly. If he continued to cultivate like this, he was confident that he could reach the rank of a 5-ringed Soul King in 2 years at most. A 17-year-old Soul King. This alone would earn him a place in Shrek's history. Tomorrow would be the match. Tang Wulin was not overly nervous, but at the same time, he did not allow himself to get too relaxed either. Even if he knew quite well that this match was not going to go his way, given that the difference in strength would make victory difficult, he still would spare no effort. Regardless of the outcome, he would give it everything he had. He seized every opportunity to improve himself and grow stronger. Teacher Wu had not made an appearance at all from start to finish, nor did he give them any points to ponder on. Although earlier it was said that he did not care about them, Tang Wulin now understood that Teacher Wu's non-appearance was actually because he wanted to completely hand over this cultivation opportunity to them and let them make their own choices. That was right. Father had said that the only one whom a person could trust and rely on completely throughout one's life was oneself. If the sentence was applied to the current situation, it should be one's own strength. Never rely on anyone else. Only by one's own strength could one truly be powerful. Yi Xinglan lay on the bed. Her delicate face was ghastly pale. Her eyelashes trembled slightly, and she scowled every now and then. Her aura was clearly weaker, that was a sign of her waning blood essence. Xu Lixi sat on the side of the bed. His heart was heavy with worry as he looked at her. In the end, she had fallen ill. To be more precise, she had exhausted herself. Had he not been beside her at that moment and given her treatment in due time, who knows what would have happened? Sister Xinglan, you're staunch to a fault. You're too keen on winning. Xu Lixi raised his flabby, fan-like hand and placed it gently on Yi Xinglan's forehead, feeling for her gradually decreasing body temperature. He lightly caressed her hair twice. I think this is the only way you'd ever take a break. Sister Xinglan, you must get well soon. I'm just too weak. But no matter what, next time, I will never allow you to harm yourself like this. Xie was the only one who was not resting or cultivating. As he stood on the balcony, he placed his arms on the rails to support his own body. His expression was relaxed and at ease. He felt the night wind blowing against him, a faint smile hanging on the edge of his lips. What a delightful, relaxing sensation. This was how an agility system soul master should feel. Freedom was the source of agility. The other day, after Yuan and Yehue carried him back, he had slept for a day before he woke up. At that point, he felt as if he was completely remade. His very being was unlike who he had been before. He held on to that sublime feeling. These days, every moment brought a new change in him. Both his attitude and strength were changing. He finally had a vague understanding as to why he was only able to control one clone before this. It was because he was too nervous and he had not relaxed enough. What he needed was inspiration, not tension or restriction. Yuinen, just you wait, I'll be more powerful than you. One day, I'll be the prince wearing golden armor and divine clothes, and I'll take you as my wife. Yuinen Yehue cultivated silently in her room. She had always been hardworking, even though she was gifted with many natural talents. Her innate gifts had never affected her diligence. Only she herself knew that her cultivation speed was actually not that fast. Although her two top-ranked martial souls were powerful, they clashed because both were fighting for dominance. She had to perfectly harmonize the relationship between them before she could continue to improve her own cultivation base. She had always been hardworking, as she was determined to become powerful. Only sufficient strength could equip her with the means to accomplish her goal, the one which she dreamed of. She was glad that she had so many formidable companions around her. If it were not for them, she would have no idea how far her abilities had reached compared to her peers. It was precisely because of them that she could start crafting one-word battle armor from spirit alloy. In the near future, when her cultivation base had reached her desired rank, it would be time for her to return. Xu Xiaoyan was already sound asleep as she lay sprawled on the bed. On the other hand, Yu Jingyu was still awake. He was lying on his side, looking at Xu Xiaoyan on the edge of the bed. His gaze was full of gentleness. Ever since he had been injured the other day, she had been taking care of him. They had never said more than a few words. Everything appeared very natural and relaxed. Indeed, it was this feeling that made Yu Jingyu felt warm inside. He was born into a clan which was strict about rank. Whether the bloodline of the family was pure or not, even the line of the clansmen had rigid ranks. He was lucky that he was the future heir to the main line and was the young master of the clan. Since he was little, he had grown up in an atmosphere where he was showered with care and admiration. Of course, there was also some envy, but he never cared about that. He had always felt that he was himself. He was the representative of the Holy Angel clan. It was only when he came to Shrek Academy that he started to understand that he was not the most powerful among his peers. Although the Holy Angel martial soul was powerful, he had never been able to unleash its full potential. He still had a long way to go before he could become a true expert. When he was with the clan, he was always like the moon surrounded by a myriad of stars. His clan even chose some girls of equal social rank in the clan to play with him when he was 10 so that he could pick the one he liked the most among them. However, that was also the period where he was the most rebellious. The more it was presented to his face, the more he disliked it. He especially disliked the girls who put on airs just to get close to him. Some of them acted cold and proud, some of them acted gentle, and some of them acted refined and cultured. In his eyes, all of this was all just an act. That was why he suggested that he study in Shrek Academy. He had wanted to be away from the shackles of his clan, so he could explore the outside world. He wanted to see what kind of beautiful flames burned outside of his clan. He came to Shrek, and he met the companions around him. There was Yunen Yehue who was stronger than himself, and there were Tang Wulin and Ji Yu who were one grade below them, yet were incredibly stronger. He started to see his own shortcomings, and he began learning how to work hard. So not to fall behind the others, he worked harder than anyone else. Even so, the age of 15 was precisely where one was youthful and undergoing puberty. He would still take notice of the girls around him. There was no shortage of beautiful girls at Shrek Academy. There were also many of his classmates who were interested in him. After all, he had a noble background and extraordinary strength. However, he did not take a liking to any of them. Only when he came out this time did he gradually notice that another figure had started occupying his heart. That figure was very blurry. In the beginning, he did not even know who she was. Only when he was gravely injured and unconscious this time did he hear a sobbing voice constantly calling on him. When he was awake, her figure was always by his side. His heart, which had always been closed, was now warming up. He greatly liked this feeling of being taken care of. He liked it so much that even when his body had fully recovered, he remained on the bed and did not tell her that he had recovered. This was because he knew that if he was fully healed, she would not have a reason to stay by his side. Then, he would not have the opportunity to constantly look at her while he was conscious. He raised his arm and gently caressed her face. She was slightly haggard-looking, and it was all because of him. Without making a sound, he got off the bed and gently carried her in his arms. He carefully laid her down on his own bed. She was clearly very tired, as she slept so deeply that she did not wake up. This video will end here. Like video and subscribe to my channel.